So I'm calling this really catchy name, the stalking horse naturalism hypothesis. Hopefully this will make sense. So now we're focusing in on the N hypothesis instead, right? I mean, let's just be clear that naturalism doesn't have to be defined the way you defined it. And because you helped yourself to a definition of God there, I can do that too, right? So I'm not part of a church of naturalism, right? I don't have any creed that I have to stick to with naturalism. In fact, I'm not even particularly sure I count myself as a naturalist, right? I think whilst we're on the topic, I don't really understand how naturalists explain what numbers are, or what logical validity is, or what obligations are, or what normativity is, right? I don't understand how any of that works on naturalism. So while I like naturalism in the sense that I like science finding stuff out about things, and I feel like I'm going to take medicine that's been, science has checked it first and stuff. I'm going on a plane when people who know what they're doing have designed it. And science is good, right? But I don't think it gives you all the answers. So anyway, not particularly committed to naturalism, but let's play the game, right? We're playing the naturalism versus theism game. So I can be a bit more creative with what the naturalism hypothesis is, it seems to me. So yeah, so let me just summarize this first, right? I'm going to just chuck in a disposition to naturalism, right? So let's call it something like the hypothesis that there's no guiding mind behind the universe or something, right? That's what naturalism means. But it's not just pure chance what happens, right? There's some disposition, right, that just sort of does stuff. Yeah, and I don't really want to say too much more about it right now anyway. So feels to me like I can do that because that's part of how this game works, right? And then I think I can probably just come up with a version of that hypothesis, right? So naturalism plus some kind of disposition that would play the game in a way that's so similar to the way that the theism hypothesis is playing it, that you could never really make a case that what your hypothesis was kind of significantly more probable than mine, right? And that's why it's a stalking horse. I think I can just cook up a theory or hypothesis that is always going to be at the side of the theistic hypothesis in terms of probabilities. So that's what a stalking horse hypothesis means. So let me go into this in a bit more detail, right? Because that's like not very helpful. I think it's a summary of what I'm trying to say, but okay. So the way that Luke talks about N makes me think of something that seems like I think nobody actually thinks about it like that, right? He thinks of it, I think, as some kind of there's at the beginning of the universe or something, there's some cosmic random number generator, and that spits out values for, like, I don't know, cosmological constant and entropy and the mass of the, I don't know, quarks or whatever, right? All the stuff that he was talking about before, as if naturalism is the view that all of those values were determined in some kind of cosmic lottery or cosmic raffle that happened before the universe started, and it only spun the numbers once, right? And yeah, I agree on that hypothesis, right? It's nuts. The chances that exactly this thing would happen are incredibly low, right? But let's just forget about that hypothesis. I don't think anybody believes that that's true, right? That there's some kind of magic random number generator at the beginning of the universe, and that's why we're here, right? I don't think anybody believes that. So I know you're not trying to straw man naturalism. I think that to some extent naturalists are just not very good at explaining things like this. But I think if you really sat down and asked them about it, I'm sure, well, and maybe some of them would, right? There's people out there believe anything, but it doesn't seem like a good naturalism hypothesis. So I'm just going to build a different version of naturalism. It's not going to be very good, right? I don't believe this is true either, right? But I'm just going to say, call it ND, right? Which is the universe has this disposition, and it's just a mysterious disposition, right? It just is, in some sense, naturalism plus that some disposition just means that it's L is more likely, right? Just raises the probability that L would happen. That's all the disposition does. Now, okay, so let's just, before I go on to the next slide, sometimes I've seen with people who advocate fine-tuning, they say, look, imagine we're playing cards, right? And I deal a royal flush, and then I deal another royal flush, and I deal another blah, 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 right? And the probabilities that that's happening randomly is like stupidly low. You know, Luke can tell you what it is, but it's really, really low. And you'd be foolish for not thinking that I'm cheating, right? I'm probably cheating if that's what happens. I think that's the right inference to make in that case. Part of the reason is because, like, you can see me, right? I'm the agent there, I'm sitting there. That's why you think I'm cheating. You don't think that my nan down the street is responsible for it, right? You attribute some intention, and but you know which agent it is to attribute it to. It's the guy dealing the cards, right? That's the guy to blame. He's the one cheating. But okay, so I think that's why the inference to cheating rather than chance is the reasonable one there. Let's change the example, right? So I'd say I roll a dice 50 times and it comes down 6 every time. I'm not going to believe that that was chance, right? Because it's stupidly unlikely. But I'm not going to think that Luke's cheating, right? Because where's Luke? He's nowhere near, right? It's just me rolling a dice on my own. What I'm going to think is that the dice is loaded, right? It's heavier on the one side, right? And it keeps landing 6 facing up every time. That just means that the dice has a disposition to land 6, right? There's no intentions needed. I can explain why the 6 is landing, why the dice is landing showing a 6 every time without having to say, oh, Luke's cheating, right? The bloody Luke trying to make me look like an idiot thinking that this is happening by chance. I don't think that. I just think this is a dice that's heavier on the one side, right? And it seems to me fine-tuning could just be like that, right? It looks like chance in some sense, but it's just, maybe it's the product of some kind of mysterious disposition we don't understand. And I mean, I feel like it's going to be this question coming up, well, how does that work, right? And all I'm going to say, because it's just a stalking horse hypothesis, is, well, that's just a mystery, right? And I mean, look, at the end of the day, theism is very mysterious, right? How does God make the universe? No, don't know. Nobody knows that, right? It's a mystery. How does God do anything, right? All of these properties of God are very mysterious and very confusing. So mystery is built into the theistic hypothesis. And if you can have a mysterious hypothesis, then I can have a mysterious hypothesis, it seems to me. So I'm just going to have one that doesn't have any intentions in it. So let's see. Now I can run the fine-tuning argument for naturalism with a mysterious disposition, right? So the premise 1 is exactly the same as in the old argument, right? The probability that the universe will be life permitting on naturalism, just standard naturalism, is like really, really low. It's not really, really low on new jazzy naturalism with a D. It's higher than that, right? And then with the likelihood principle, and then we just conclude that, you know, actually the fact that the universe is life permitting is evidence for the fact that there's a naturalistic dispositional explanation for it over the idea that there's just naturalism and a random number generator at the beginning of the universe. So that's the fine-tuning. It's exactly the same as the fine-tuning argument for theism. I mean, I've only changed 2 letters, right, in the whole argument. It's exactly the same argument apart from that. So I'm stalking horsing the argument at this stage, and it seems that it works exactly the same. Well, you might say, look, I feel like let me just get through this and then we can talk about it. But I think you're going to say, well, look, hold on, theism's more likely than this stupid thing you've just come up with. And now we don't want to be talking about the conditional probabilities anymore. We just want to talk about what are our prior probabilities in these hypotheses, right? Which one is more likely on its own? And there's 3 options really. Like either theism is less likely than my stalking horse hypothesis, or it's more likely, or they're the same. But look, I think there is a good case to be made that it's going to be either it's going to be that either theism is less likely or they're the same. And part of the reason for that is that you know, we have lots of examples of things looking like they were designed. I mean, unless you don't believe in evolution, I think Luke believes in evolution. You know, the eye looks like it couldn't possibly have been designed because it's really complicated, right? Oh, who wants half an eye? There's no use in that, blah, 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 blah. We know these types of arguments. But you know what? It just came about by a naturalistic process. There's a dispositional process. It's called something like evolution, right? And that actually accounts for it. So we've got track records of things like that happening. I think Newton thought that, you know, for the planets to be maintained in their orbits or something, that needed God to like set them off, but then physics would take over. And I think we don't now think that God was needed in that either. There's mechanistic explanations for that too. So it's not. It seems to me it's not a clear case that theism is going to be more likely, right? The idea that there would be a naturalistic dispositional explanation for fine tuning does seem like it's not completely ad hoc, right? Maybe that's true. And as I said, yeah, maybe it's mysterious, but so is the theistic hypothesis. So they kind of draw on that, right? If you're going to complain that I've just cooked it up and it's mysterious, well, it doesn't seem like it's much that really tells between the two. So I think that you're going to have to. I think that it's going to have to be either 3 or 1 here. And if that's true, then it's not just a stalking horse hypothesis. If 1 is the case, then it's actually more likely. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that probably just is my view. Some theory that you can plug in for ND that, I don't know, Roger Penrose or cook up or someone like that will actually explain all of those examples of fine tuning that Luke was talking about at some point, right? Yeah.